Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
I want to point to Holly Burdick, because 15 years ago, she said, you have to come over and visit this church called Unity. And when Julie and I went and visited Unity, I left there, and they talked about the 5 principles, our vision and mission statement. These were all the things that my father talked about growing up. Inclusiveness to all, justice for all, doing the best, yourself. It's not about anybody else, it's about you. These were what he taught me as a young person. Now, my father was an outstanding athlete, outstanding. He grew up in the north of Boston in a town called Marblehead. He played football and hockey in high school, and 2 years in the Army during World War II, and then went on to Dartmouth and started football and ice hockey at Dartmouth. From there, he went to the University of Rhode Island, where he was the assistant football coach, and left the University of Rhode Island to be the assistant football coach at Connecticut. In 1958, he started the first ice hockey program, and they built a rink in 1967. He also coached tennis as well. Now, he wasn't a religious man. He never attended, an organized religion as a young person. And my mother was Episcopalian, so when he decided to marry my mom, he ended up going to All Saints and getting baptized and confirmed in the same day before he could marry my mother. Now, he didn't walk around the house, with the Bible, but he knew he was a very spiritual man. And the only time I ever heard the word Jesus and Christ were, you did what? Who do you think you are? He had very simple sayings. If somebody did something bad to you, he would say, what are you going to do about it? He wasn't one of these helicopter parents of today where they get in and they fight for you. He also would say, I want you to think about this. Will this matter in 10 years? And 90.9% of the time, it really won't matter in 10 years. Put it in perspective. Put it in perspective. He had all these other euphemisms, but about winning and losing, and show me a good quitter and I'll show you a loser. And cheaters never win and winners never cheat, and things like that. But as young people, we loved to play games with checkers, anything we could do to play with my father. And he hated to play with us because he played to win. There was no playing nice. He'd play you in anything, he would play to win. We would go outside and set up the croquet. And then after dinner, we'd beg him to play, and sometimes he would, sometimes he wouldn't. But he would come out and literally destroy us in 5 minutes. He knew how to place the ball strategically. He would send us, go through the wicket, hit us, get the 2 shots, go around the course, poison us, all within 5 minutes. And we'd be sitting there crying, play again, Daddy. And the thing he said to me, and to my sister, and to my brother, he says, you have to learn to lose first before you can win. It's about the journey. About the journey. Now, the 3 lessons I'm going to talk to you about today are keep it in play, it's about yourself, keep the team in play, and keep your truth principles in play. Hey, Steve, how are you? Welcome back. Happy Father's Day. Now, my father was very proficient in tennis. As an older man, he was about 240. And he was a very good, very quick tennis player, and he also coached it. But think about tennis. Tennis is mano on mano, one-on-one. And it's a game of mistakes. And if you ever listen to this, who's listened to professional tennis? They say momentum has shifted, and McEnroe has 12 unforced errors. It's a game of mistakes. And the best players And the best players are the ones that can overcome those perfections and think about they're mentally prepared to play the game of tennis. Again, it's one-on-one. And playing my father, he didn't hit the ball hard. You know, he got his first serve in. That was his big thing. Get your first serve in. But he always say, if you're going to win in tennis, you got to keep it in play. So you played my father in tennis. He was great at keeping it in play. Everywhere you hit it on the court, he would get it back. And you know, Julie used to say, he didn't move that much, but he knew how to place the ball. If that ball was close to him, it was deep to the baseline for you. And so playing him, you had to really hustle, diving for the ball. It was also mentally, because there were times as a high school kid, I'd have him right on the ropes, and he would make a great shot. Get himself right back in the game, and then he knew he broke me. Come back and beat me. You know, later in life, I was actually married to Julie. First time I actually beat him in tennis. That's how good he was. And afterwards, you know, I worked hard. Oh man, when you played him, you worked hard. But I finally beat him. And he said to me afterwards, good game. You did well. I said, thanks, God. I really appreciate it. You know? Because again, I won. And you think about life and the challenges you have in life. You have to make the decision, you know? There's no easy path. And going back to what he used to say, what are you going to do about it? And when you hear people say, you know, they blame some outside of themselves, really, in tennis, you don't have nobody to blame but yourself if you lose. It's about the errors that you make. And so keep it more in play, more than your opponent, win or lose. Success or failure. Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times before he invented the light. So the moral of this story is don't ever give up, and keep it in play. The second story is keep the team in play. Now, my father had coached ice hockey. You know, he started in 1958, and eventually they were D1, and he had some really good teams, and he had some really good players. One of the things he enjoyed most about coaching is when the players would come back and see him after they had graduated from college. You know, they were doctors and lawyers and teachers. Some were politicians. Some even made it to the NHL. But he really enjoyed seeing them leading successful lives outside of the sports area. You know, the kids were growing up. He really enjoyed that. Well, one year he had this player who thought he was bigger than God himself. I mean, he was one of these guys that he thought that the team revolved around him. And he was a very good player. No question, he was a very, very good player. You know people like that in life? Maybe. And the kid was good, no question. But in hockey, it's 5-on-5. Where's Jim? You a Blackhawks fan? All right, there you go. They won the Stanley Cup. It's 5-on-5. It's a very fast game, and there's 3 lines, and they call it changing on the fly. But when the first line gets tired, they switch out and they put the second line, and the second line gets tired, they put in the third line. Now in hockey, if you make a penalty, you go in the penalty box for 2 minutes, and your opponent has 5 men on the ice, and you have 4. So there's a disadvantage. So they call that the power play. Well, this kid, he'd score 2 goals, they'd be tied 2-2, and he would make a stupid penalty late in the game. I mean, blatant penalties. So my father sat him down and said, listen, if you do this again, I'm going to suspend you for 1 game. Sure enough, the kid did it the next game. My father suspended him. And he said to the kid the next time you do this, I'm going to cut you from the team. Play had stopped in the next game. There was about 3 minutes left in the game. They were up 3-2. And this kid went over to this other kid, stuck his stick under the guy's skate, and flipped him like that. 5-minute manger, which meant he was out for he couldn't come back. And we were down a man for 5 minutes with, 3 minutes left. The other team scored 2 goals to win. The very next day, my father sat him down and told him he was cut from the team. And you know what that kid said to my father? "You won't win another game without me." My father said, "That may be true, but you're not playing for me." So the very next game, my father had to make some adjustments. Moved a kid up from the second line to the first line. Moved a kid from the third line to the second line. And there was this young man that didn't play that much, but was always at practice. He was one of these kids that, gave it 110% in practice. Working hard, making everybody better. Cheering on the team when he wasn't playing. But my father moved him up to the second line. And they were up 2-2. Matter of fact, in the second period, this kid was not a big kid, but a really good hustler. And he took a hard shot to the head. And cut his head, and they took him off, they stitched him up, and he came out third period and played. It was tough. And guess what? Late in the game, in the third period, scored 2-2. Puck scribbled out, went right on his stick. He put it up right in the back of the net and won the game. And they went on to win 15 straight games after that. And they went deep into the playoffs. And so you start thinking about who really lost in that. And that you think about who really lost. And that was that young man that thought he was bigger than the team. Because he wasn't there as a part of the team. He was gone. And the team was better off without him. Phil Jackson said, "Good teams become great ones when the members trust each other enough to surrender to the me for the we." And after my father died, I was going through his memorabilia, and there was a picture of JFK. And he had met JFK, who was the senator of Massachusetts. He was down in Washington, I don't know, at a coaching convention or something. And JFK, at his inauguration in 1960, he said, not ask what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And he started thinking about it, we're unity, we're a team here. And so let's turn around and say, same thing is, ask not what unity can do for you, ask what you can do for unity. There's no me, it's we. My last story, I call it Keep Your Truth Principles. Because this was, for me, a defining moment for my relationship with my father. Now, my father had 2 siblings, a sister, June, who was 9 years older than him, and then a brother who was 12 years older than him. And again, they grew up in Marblehead, Mass. And he loved his mother. He was the youngest. You know how it is, Stephen, right? You're number 1, right? And my father loved his mother. He truly did. And I so enjoyed going up and visiting my grandmother in the old homestead on Atlantic Avenue in idyllic Marblehead, Massachusetts. Now, my grandfather had died back in the early 50s. I never knew him. But my grandmother, she was a great cook. And my father loved to go get her cooking. Well, June, the sister, had a daughter, Cheryl, and she was about 16 when I was about 5. And June lived with Mommy and my grandmother, my dad's dad. She had been divorced twice. She wasn't good at marriage at all. Matter of fact, it's sort of funny, she, her daughter's last name was Berry. And June's last name was Chapman. I go, how does that work, Dad? Well, he said the second marriage was to a Chapman, another Chapman. I said, how convenient, So we get the family name back. And that marriage only lasted about 2 months. So I to be honest with you, I don't know this for a fact, but I don't know if she really liked guys, But no, I mean, no. at you for a second. I'm trying to look at everybody. So I used to love to mess me up a little. Don't you like that? Like you and I, you know? So I always enjoyed going up to Marblehead and visiting. And when I was little, about 5, I'd go. And Cheryl, June's daughter, would take me out in the tandem bikes. And we'd ride around Marblehead. And she, took me one time to the Newport Creamery and introduced me as my, this is John Chapman's son. The guy looked at, you tell your dad I said hello. Oh, I will, He was something, he had made did something up there in Marblehead. People remembered him. Now, Cheryl, as she grew older, she went to Boston College, and then she started working in Boston. And she met this guy who happened to work, have a big job at John Hancock. They came down and met us, a really nice guy. And they decided they were going to get married. And we thought that was great. But his sister did. And the reason was he was Jewish. And my father just like, are you kidding me? And June said, no. If you want to be a member of this family, you will not partake in marrying David. And she told my father, if you want to ever see your mother again, you need to be on my side. And I was like, really? And I was 10 or 11 at the time when this all was going on. And my father didn't do the easy thing. He did the right thing. He gave Cheryl away at her wedding. He stood by her. At the end of the day, he didn't see his mother for 10 years. He adored her. And see, June was the caregiver. He lived in the house and was the executor, so she was the block for him to see his mother. The next time he saw his mother, she was racked with dementia and just before death. But you think about it, he did our fifth principle. He walked the talk and put the talk in action. And those were the 3 lessons of my family. Keep it in play. It's about you digging down deep and persevering, even when the chips are down. Keep the team in play. Nobody is bigger than the team. And lastly, keep your true principles in play, which is our unity's 5th principle, right? I'm not done yet. Come on. Heck no. What? Well, I do want to talk about a couple of things before I close. He was like I said, a tremendous athlete. And right before he died, I got to spend some quality time with him. He was in the hospital, racked with cancer. And it was, we had actually driven down to see him. We knew he was dying in the hospital. And I was sitting with him, and it was late at night, and I was holding his hand, and I said, Dad, what are you thinking? And he told me he was going through his life one year at a time. And so I just sat with that, and I was quiet, and I was holding his hand every now and then. He'd squeeze it. And then I don't know where I went, but I actually went to a place where it was a fall day. I heard the clashing of hike and football, I heard the bodies hitting each other, and I saw my father actually play football. And here's some pictures. That's a picture of him down in the corner. That's a picture of him punting, and that's a picture of him playing. And when he died, there was an article in the Boston Globe. It said, it was actually on the front page of the sports section. Legend of Marblehead passes away. And it was a really nice article, but one phrase really resonated with me, and it was somebody who played with him. In one word, how would you describe John Chapman? Determination. Determination. Now there's a poem I want to read. It's by a gentleman that actually played professional baseball in the 30s and 40s. Then he actually umped in the 50s, and I think he retired in the 1960s. It's called The Road Ahead of the Road Behind. And it's talk about living in the presence and dealing with the fates that you deal with every day. Put your the past behind, deal with the present moment, and then the future will take care of itself. Giving it 100% right now in this moment. The road ahead or the road behind, George Moriarty. I think the fates must grin as we denounce them and insist. The only reason we can't win is the fates themselves have missed. Yet there lives an ancient claim, we win or lose within ourselves. The shining trophies on our shelves can never win tomorrow's game. So you and I know deeper down, there is a chance to win the crown. But when we fail to give our best, we simply haven't met the test of giving all and saving none until the game is really won, of playing, of showing what it's meant by grit, of playing through, not letting up. It's bearing down that wins the cup, of taking it and taking more until we gain the winning score, of dreaming there's a goal ahead, of hoping when our dreams are dead, of praying when our hopes have fled, yet losing not afraid to fall, if bravely we have given all. For who can ask of a man that giving all within his span, that giving all, it seems to me, is not so far from victory. And so the fates are seldom wrong, no matter how they twist and wind. It's you and I who can make our fates. We open up and close the gates. Thank you.